Hey there, I wanted to come on and make a quick video to answer this question that I see coming up all the time with people who are trying to control or stop drinking, and just the question of why can't I stop drinking? For those who don't know me, my name is Katie and I run this YouTube channel for what's known as the Sinclair Method. It's a medically managed way to unlearn alcohol addiction. It's been around for over 30 years, scientifically proven to have a 78% success rate, but it's still relatively unknown, unfortunately. But I wanted to give my thoughts on the question so many people have when they're trying to stop drinking and they're saying, why can't I stop? Because I was there before myself for almost 10 years and a lot of those kind of like day ones that keep happening over and over again, and just the inability to control. And you think this is going to be it, this is going to be the time I'm finally going to quit, and then lo and behold, whether it's a couple days or weeks or months, you start drinking again. So why is that? And the reason for this, which I've come to learn over my last 4 years of really diving deep into this stuff and totally nerding out on it, is because on a neurological level in our brains, when we're dependent on alcohol, we are essentially equating alcohol to our survival, because our brains are habit-forming machines, and especially when it comes to pleasurable things, because pleasure to our brains equals survival. And alcohol, being that it's a very addictive substance, is very pleasurable for our brains. So when someone drinks repeatedly over and over again over a period of time, alcohol use disorder or alcohol addiction can really sneak up on them. And this was true for me in my drinking. I kind of was the typical American girl partying early in my 20s and stuff, thinking, oh, this is just a phase, I'll get through. But then when I tried to control it or rein it in, I couldn't stop, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. And so now what I've come to learn, it's because my brain was thinking that I needed the alcohol to survive. And so it was causing me to crave it when I didn't have it. And so the longer I would go without it, the cravings would intensify. And the reason for that, which now we know through scientific research that's been done by Dr. David Sinclair, there's something called the alcohol deprivation effect, or ADE. And what he found in his studies with rats was that when he had these rats that were addicted to alcohol, and then they would remove alcohol completely from these rats, and then they would reintroduce the alcohol to the rats. And what they found was that the rats, when they were exposed to the alcohol again, they would binge drink on it at a rate 15 times higher than their normal drinking levels. So what this research discovered is there's such a thing as an alcohol deprivation effect, because when you are deprived of something you're dependent on and that your brain is equating to a survival need, when you finally get it, you are just gonna go crazy on it, which is why a lot of people can go abstinent for a while and then eventually they relapse, because craving is the number one reason for relapse. And when they relapse, it can be kind of worse than before, like they can kind of binge. And you can think about this like anything we need for our survival, like water. If you're thirsty and haven't had water in a couple days, when you finally have some, you're gonna like chug it like there's no tomorrow. And of course, this isn't a perfect example or comparison, but that's what's happening on a neurological level in a part of our brain that is the more primitive part of the brain. We've essentially conditioned it to depend upon alcohol and crave it because it's so rewarding, and our brains think that pleasure that we're getting from alcohol is going to keep us alive. So, why I've become so passionate about the Sinclair Method, of course, through my own experience with how well it worked for me, and then just seeing how it works for countless other people I've seen over the last 4 years as well, is what this method does is it deals with that root cause of alcohol addiction or alcohol use disorder, which is what's happening in the brain. When you go on the Sinclair Method, what this method is basically is it involves taking a medication. It's an opiate blocker medication. This is a safe medication. It's not addictive or habit forming. It's cheap in the US, it's cheap most everywhere. But how this method works is someone takes the medication 1 hour before they drink. And what that medication does is it blocks the reward reinforcement people get from alcohol. So drinking can still be fun. People can still enjoy it when they go on this method. It doesn't make you sick. It's not like anti-abuse. But what it does is on a neurological level, it just blocks that reward. And so what happens for people, especially the longer they're on the method, is that they drink, but it's not really the same type of experience where, you know, for me before TSM, I would have like 1 or 2 drinks and I would just want more until I was blacked out. And if I would try to stop, I'd be like white knuckling it, wishing I could have more. But what happens with this method when you take that medication is it kind of gives you an off switch, to where people who used to drink like a bottle of wine a night, like myself, you have 1 or 2 glasses and you're kind of satisfied. And this method works over a long period of time. It takes many months to see the full effects, but what's great about it is the effects of it build and build and build over time. And so over time, someone's taking this medication, waiting an hour, and they're drinking on it, and they're doing that repeatedly. They're basically retraining their brain and telling their brain that alcohol doesn't equal the same reward that it used to. It can still be pleasurable, it can still be fun, but it's not giving that explosion of endorphins and feel-good hormones like it would before, because when we drink, it just does this flood of feel-good hormones in our brain, like twice that of what even like our favorite food or what sex gives us. So it's very pleasurable for our brain. And so when you go on this method, again, it's blocking that. And so it's just less and less rewarding. And what I often tell people what it's like is like, you know, you have an amazing cake, you bake it, it's fresh out of the oven, it's the best cake you've ever had on day 1. And then by day 7, it's kind of stale. And sure, you might have a slice, but you might not finish it, or you might not, you know, really enjoy it that much. And that's kind of what happens over time with the Sinclair method is, you know, you go from someone who's drinking a lot and can't get enough and is always thinking about alcohol to someone who, you know, sure, you'll have a glass of wine or a beer when you're out with friends or with dinner, but you don't really want more. You're kind of satisfied with one. I've heard other people say that, you know, they'll go out for an ice cream cone and they're really going to enjoy that ice cream cone and be really happy that they had it, but they're not going to go out and have 2, 3, 4 ice cream cones. And so a similar thing happens with the Sinclair method. So that's why I've become such an advocate for this method. That's why I've devoted this whole channel to it. It's my life's work now, because it's just so effective for most people at undoing the root cause of alcohol addiction, dealing with what's going on in the brain, and giving you back control over alcohol, because it resets how your brain is equating alcohol to a pleasure and a survival need. So I just wanted to share that today, because so many people will, you know, try to quit drinking over and over again and have those day 1s over and over again. I did that for 8 years or so. So I know the struggle. It's very frustrating, and you kind of blame yourself for it and think, what's wrong with me? But it's not you. It's actually, you know, your brain. It's the symptom of a, you know, healthy brain doing what it's supposed to do, to learn to remember things that give us pleasure and tell your brain to do it again and again, because your brain thinks that's what's going to keep you alive and surviving. So it's just a function of what your brain's supposed to do. And for me, it was really hard to go, you know, abstinent without the Sinclair method. I know people do, but I, for 8 years, was trying and I couldn't. But this method, you know, it's evidence-based. It's been tested over and over again. And again, the success rate of it is somewhere around 78%. And I should say too, that the end goal of this method does not mean abstinence necessarily. I am sober. I've been sober for 3 years because this method just caused me over a course of a year to kind of fall out of love with alcohol, and I just didn't enjoy it anymore at all. And I don't take the medication anymore because you only take it 1 hour before you drink. But other people, I know a lot of people who went on this method and now they're moderate drinkers, they're social drinkers, they save it for dinner or special occasions, but they're back in control of drinking. And so with this method, you don't have to go abstinent. In fact, I think most people who go on the method do continue to drink in moderation in some form or another. And then for others who go abstinent like me, it was just like kind of like a no-brainer after time. Of course, this was after a year on the method and doing a lot of changes and self-growth and all of that. But alcohol wasn't doing it for me anymore. You know, it wasn't bringing anything into my life anymore. So I was like, I think I'm gonna stop drinking. But I just, when I learned about the Sinclair method, you know, it just blew my mind, and I was like, this is way too good to be true. This can't be possible. Oops, I'm covering the camera, sorry guys. It seemed impossible, and I think a lot of people, that's the first thing they say, and then they always ask me, why haven't I heard of this before? And there are reasons, you know, I'm not going to go into that in this video, but let's just say that the way the alcohol treatment industry is set up, and the alcohol industry, you know, they're multi-billion-dollar industries, so going up against them with a treatment that has a 78% success rate is, you know, gonna ruffle some feathers. So, but there's more and more resources about this out there. More and more doctors are getting on board with helping their patients with it. And I myself, I've been a coach. I run the Sinclair Method community platform, which has courses and community and coaching to support someone through this process. And yeah, so I hope this reaches someone. You know, if you're struggling with those day ones over and over and wondering why can't I stop, it's not you. It's a function of your brain doing what it's supposed to do. And through methods like the Sinclair Method, you can truly unlearn it. It takes time. And so the Sinclair Method is not the only option, obviously, and it doesn't work for 100% of people, but it works for most people, especially if you have that internal motivation to change. All right, more information in the description box. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.